What is the purpose of all of that XRP that's locked away in the on-demand liquidity? And also, there were 1,700 smart contracts found in the escrow for Ripple. Who are these contracts for? Who are they going to pay out?
What do you think the escrow's supposed to be used for?
I'll tell you. So what I personally think the escrow is used for is to pay back the world debt, right? You have the U.S. is 32 trillion. All the NATO partners are, 3 trillion, 2 trillion. Japan's like 2 trillion. I think there was a deal made, or if they didn't make this deal, they should have made this deal. But make a deal, and I think that's what the 1,700 contracts are for on this XRP Alexandria. So I think a deal was made, right? And so check this out. So I met with Patrick from Reaper Finance, and he said some stuff to me, and I was rattling around my head for a long time, and I just asked him some questions. But he said that there's actually a very low supply of XRP on the open market. And I've been trying to confirm how much XRP is literally on the open market or on exchanges that can be used at any given time. I'm really trying to find out that number, because if we can find out there's only like 5 or 10% really that's not accounted for, then we can kind of understand maybe when this is going to happen. But back to the theory about the central banks. Why wouldn't you make a deal, right? How else? So the people that get hurt in these global resets are the banks, and their banks are their fans, right? And they don't want to hurt the banks. So the banks would need to be repaid and made whole. So what I think happened is, I think there was a deal that was done with certain systemically important banks and certainly countries, right? And so I think there was maybe a price set, or in the future. And Black Swan Capitalist, I think you had you talked to him, and he said that he had a friend that worked at the Australian Central Bank, and there was a preset price for XRP. There's no way for us to confirm that. So I always kind of like to think of different theories, but I do think that is because, I mean, where else are you going to generate all that money, right? You can't, even if you took gold and you 10x gold, we still wouldn't have enough gold to pay off, the current, and we don't even know how much gold we have in the Federal Reserve. So I do think there was a deal made, because why is XRP the only cryptocurrency project or digital asset project that was created a long time ago that has half of the tokens escrowed in the time lock escrow? Why did they think to do that? There was a reason they did that. And I think the reason we have not found out yet, but that is my personal belief. And that would have been a great way to do it, right? You trash XRP, you trash Ripple, you sue them, you want to push everybody out, you bring regulation, you're trying to push everybody out of the market before you have to fully adopt it, right? Because the FedNow payment system uses, if you're going to have instant settlement with FedNow, you're probably going to be using using Ripple, right? But I just think there was a deal that was made, and there's not a lot of XRP on the open market. That's what Patrick told me. And so if you can find the number of XRP, then we could really kind of start working with models of, hey, if tomorrow, ODL was handling $1 trillion in payments, and there's only 5% or 10% on the open market, what would the price of XRP need to be? And then you can kind of build the model, right? What does 5 trillion a day look like? What does 10 trillion a day look like? Because there are way too many banks, and there are way too many central banks for you to think they're not going to be trillions of dollars moved through the system a day. If you're living in a fantasy land, if you don't think that the XRP ledger was built for high performance, high throughput, slow and cheap transactions, moving $30 million, or was it moving $50 million in 3 seconds for 30 cents? I think the gentleman said. That is the new system, and that's what's going to work. And that's kind of like my full belief on what I think is going to happen with central banks, because then you could pay off all the debt, right? And you could start over, you could have a fresh reset, and nobody would be rioting, nobody would be doing anything, because not only the banks would be happy, but now you shower the citizens with universal basic income. And a lot of people are like, the rich people are going to be upset, right, if the financial system resets. But rich people only make up what, 1% or 1.5% of population, right? You really worried about the people that are not rich, right? The regular everyday citizens that have 400 million guns in this country, right? Those are the people you worry about. So I think this whole system is bound to crash sooner or later. I think next month the Fed is going to raise another 0.25 basis point, which is going to put more pressure on the banks. And then they're going to hope CPI falls, down to 4 or 3% over these next 4 months. If it doesn't, So once the Fed pivots, usually if you look back at the last 6 decades, once the Fed pivots, the market crashes, right? Because that's when something's broke, right? Because they wouldn't pivot unless something didn't break. So that's when you're going to see dumping of markets, right? But my question is, are people going to leave the crypto market? I'm not, and I know you're not, and a lot of your followers are not. I think what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to leave the stock market, and I think some of that money is going to go into the digital asset market, because you have MiCA coming in 2024. The US is going to have to get off their bum and do regulations. So we're really getting to that point, that inflection point where the system is breaking. Banks are insolvent, and I do think they're going to try to print another, $2 to $5 trillion, and then the system will collapse, right? And that's when you have a financial reset. If we can get to that point, I do think we get to that point. But then all the value, understand this, on a complete collapse, all the value wakes up in the digital world now, right? Because they've moved all of these, security clearing, all this stuff to digital. And so now that you have the DTCC Live and all these other big custody banks, State Street and all these big guys, they've all moved to a digital back end, right? And so stocks, bonds, equities, gold, silver, everything is going to be digitized, put on these ledgers, and that is where a lot of the value is going to come from. So you not only have all of that value, but then you have the throughput on payment volume.